Oh ho ho! Hold on, there's 2 minutes left on this house clip, okay? Wow, how's life today? How's it going? If oil and other natural resources are only going to last another 50 years, do you think some investment in gold is a good idea for the next generation? What does that even mean? How is gold a replacement for oil? I gotta aim my finals today. Would you say you love me? I love you, buddy. Theon. Wait like 60 seconds.
You're a good man.
Oh. Like, this doesn't even narratively or thematically make any sense. Because it's not like he's sacrificing himself to buy more time. He's like not even accomplishing anything. Me when I troll my teammates. Do you think we can take him? Yeah, let's go. Dive, tower dive. Me when I sit and watch my jungler int my lane. Wow, good job. Wait, this is a troll post, right? Dad bods at the top, Mel physique. It's bait. He just dies. What a waste of time. Have you seen the new Dr. Mike x Dr. Mike interview from a few days ago? I feel like we clicked on it, but I don't think I watched it. Why? What is it? Dr. Mike, Dr. Mike. Who's to blame if you're fat? Is this one?
If I was still working at the university, I would never give this interview.
Oh my God.
Because saying that poor people on average have lower conscientiousness, I'm still worried about this going out. Holy f, that's insulting. If you're nuanced and you're smart, you can understand how it's both real and not insulting. But if you're anything else, and if you're very politically motivated, it's going to be a nuclear bomb. You're blaming people for their problems.
Please welcome return guest Dr. Mike Israetel, PhD, to the Checkup Podcast. We had a very scientific, even philosophical discussion about the nature versus nurture debate surrounding obesity. We get into that and so much more, muscle, its implication on your health, what's hype, what's not. You're gonna enjoy this conversation. I know I did. Let's get started with the Checkup Podcast with Dr. Mike. Squared? I remember last time we talked about this, I don't think you read comments and feedback and stuff.
I do sometimes.
Oh. Like I was looking at feedback at our conversation, and a lot of people were saying that they don't believe AI is exponential as you say it is.
Yeah, they're just categorically wrong. This is not really like a debatable topic for people.
It's always good to start though. Base.
People who are deeply entrenched in the field. I can approach this from a variety of angles to illustrate this point, but it used to be that the number of people that were saying that artificial general intelligence, roughly human capability intelligence, back in the late 90s, the vast majority of AI researchers thought it was some combination of impossible. It would arrive later than 2100. Mm-hmm. Every single 5 years that they do investigations into what the consensus of the AI profession is, that number falls lower and lower and lower. Up until, and originally Ray Kurzweil was kind of the real, kind of, not the father, but one of the main progenitors of this idea that AGI is coming much sooner than people think. His original prognostication date was 2030. He later revised it to 2029, which is oddly specific. There are conversations now among the CEOs of Anthropic, OpenAI, various people at Google. These are the people making these things. And the conversation is like, are we going to hit AGI in like 2027, or is it really going to be 2029 or somewhere between? And so the entire profession has been coalescing into more and more aggressive prediction timelines. Mm-hmm. And so the idea that like I'm overly optimistic about it is I've just read enough about it to understand like this is the space that we live in. And the pessimism, there's also another thing. There's a well-documented human intellectual fallacy called the pessimistic fallacy.
When you say that the assassination attempt on Trump and on that CEO is the same kind of vigilantism, I mean, they're both vigilantism. I don't know if it's the same kind of vigilantism, but they're both vigilantism, yeah.
And most humans on average are more pessimistic than they should be. But it's also understandable because humans evolved in an environment, most of our brain and the way we think was designed in periods of evolution where hunter-gatherer survival was how we made things happen. Hell is a pretty good way to describe what that was like. Elements of paradise and lots of elements of hell. And things also just did not get better over time in any measurable way. And you could absolutely depend on things getting real bad real soon for most people. Like the average age of survival was like 30, so on and so forth. So that's where our brains kind of have a baseline feel of what's happening. And over the last 5 to 10,000 years, there's been an exponential growth in culture and society and industry. That means that we're really out of touch with the rate of progress. We're not usually exponential thinkers, we're linear thinkers. Almost nobody predicted the internet. And I believe 1997 or 1998, Paul Krugman, Nobel Prize-winning economist,
Oh my God.
had a comment that I'm sure he regrets making, which is, the internet.
No, he doesn't regret making that comment. I think they went to a bunch of economists and they asked him, like, make really fucking bold predictions. And that was one he made. He was like, the internet will be no more of a invention than the fax machine or whatever. It won't be a big deal. But I don't think there's like a huge regret.
It's probably not going to go anywhere because most people just don't have much to say to each other. I mean, like, we're laughing at it now. He also recently, I believe, please don't take my word for
If
this.
people only live to 30, it's not. Wait, did he say that? Fuck, hold on. Was I reading chat? Did I miss that? No, he wouldn't say that. Wait, did I miss that? Did he say we used to only live to 30? Oh, fuck. Wait, how long ago? Fuck me, hold on. Wait, that's such a stupid myth.
Humans evolved in an environment, most of our brain and the way we think was designed in periods of evolution where hunter-gatherer survival was how we made things happen. Hell is a pretty good way to describe what that was like. Elements of paradise and lots of elements of hell. And things also just did not get better over time in any measurable way. And you could absolutely depend on things getting real bad real soon for most people. But the average age of survival was like 30, so on and so forth. So that's where our brains kind of have a baseline.
When people talk about life expectancy, a lot of that is like heavily weighted towards things like disease and things like infant mortality. These things like heavily kill your average lifespan. But I think people have this weird assumption that life expectancy is like, oh, like if you're living back in the year 1000 BC, you just like died at 30 years old, or you died at 35 years old. Not really. No, like if you made it to 20, if you made it to 30, if you made it to 40, you probably live like quite a bit longer. I don't think our lifespan has changed as significantly, or not even close to as significantly as our age or our life expectancy has. It's just a kind of a misunderstood talking point.
Feel of what's happening. And over the last 5 to 10,000 years, there's been an exponential growth in.
You said average age of survival, not life expectancy. I don't know what I don't know what the average age of survival is. I've never heard that before. Maybe. I don't know if that's a real like term. I've heard life expectancy. I've heard lifespan, but.
Culture and society and industry, that means that we're really out of touch with.
Wouldn't hunter-gatherers' age be way earlier than 1000 BC? I think human history is supposed to be about 10,000 years old. Isn't that the estimate when agriculture started? So probably prior to that would have been all hunter-gatherers, right?
The rate of progress. We're not usually exponential thinkers. We're linear thinkers. Almost nobody predicted the internet. And I believe 1997 or 1998, Paul Krugman, Nobel Prize-winning economist, had a comment that I'm sure he regrets making, which is, the internet's probably not going to go anywhere because most people just don't have much to say to each other. I mean, like, we're laughing at it now. He also recently, I believe, please don't take my word for this. You should verify this. But I think he also a few months back said something negative about AI as well. He'll be tripping twice in his life, unfortunately. But the internet was this thing that is just straight up pure magic. Like, think about Amazon. You use Amazon? Mm-hmm. Like, you think of something and you actually don't even have to type anything anymore. You go, hey, Alexa, can you order me XYZ?
I don't use that.
Me neither. My parents do. She's great. She's not even an LLM yet, believe it or not.
If both are vigilantism, wouldn't you condemn both on the same basis? What? No, what? I don't know if all vigilantism is bad. I think as a rule, I think generally vigilantism is probably bad, but I don't know if I would say categorically all vigilantism is bad. So it's kind of a weird statement for an American to make whose country came from like a revolution against a government.
or not.
She's
just
not a
not a large language model. Like,
okay, got
you have to upgrade her to that. But you go on your phone and you go like protein bars, and it finds the one you like, and you go, okay, click, go hit, and then like it arrives between 5 and 7 p.m. that same day. I'm like, how? This is insane. We live in an insane time already. Imagine telling someone in the 90s, like, dude, you can just like, you'll have a cell phone, and they're like, okay, like one of those big ones. You're like, it's much smaller, but way more power, like 100 times more powerful than your best desktop today. Like, okay, it's going to be in your pocket all the time. Like, okay, so the rich have it. Like, everyone in the world has one. Okay, you just click on something, and then it just arrives later. Like where's it arriving from? Like, I actually have no idea.
Make the distinction between as a rule versus categorically. Sure. So like as a rule, your mom likes 5-inch dicks, but categorically she wouldn't rule out my 10-inch cock, my 10-inch throbbing BCC, my big Cuban cock. You know what I mean? Bitch. Vigilantism is considered bad because we shouldn't be circumventing rule of law in order to bring somebody to justice, because there's probably going to be less justice in the world if people take the law into their own hands, right? However, vigilantism's badness is a function of functioning legal systems, right? So if you live in a place where the law system is corrupt or non-existent, then vigilantism might be preferable to non-enforcement, right? So say you live in a society where there's no legal system, then you would exclusively have vigilantism to enforce whatever social norms or laws. So it just depends, yeah.
But I don't care because it arrives on time. You can think of about 100,000 different ways in which we take totally for granted the fact that we live in an era of insane abundance and prosperity and predictable improvement. And so combining all of that together and saying, well, Mike's like a bit too optimistic about AI, I would say I'm probably on the aggregate, when I hopefully am alive in 20 years, look back, I was probably like more optimistic than most people, but still more pessimistic than the reality that occurred.
I think about rate limiting steps in the exponential growth, because I absolutely can see the amount of growth that we've had in scientific understanding, achievement.
Sure.
In fact, there's a great book called like The Half-Life Effects that initially was doing research to prove why.
Not the Fed post, but how does this apply when someone is able to avoid all justice through bullshit like Trump? That will inevitably lead to people glowing. That's the natural outcome of stuff like this. That's the fuck around, find out moment. If you do things to continually circumvent rule of law or accountability, at some point, reality will hold you accountable. What that looks like is up to you. Wait, what is this?
And Conrad. Now, some of you are probably asking, who is this chick? Where is Brett? What is going on? And those are all very valid questions. So before we get into today's episode, I want to just recap a few things with you all. Now, many of you have known me as producer Reagan. I
don't follow anywhere near enough of the Daily Wire's stuff, but it's kind of brave to to keep the same show going and to just throw on a new talent. But what happened? Brett Brett Cooper basically left the show on the Daily Wire, and then the producer stepped up. Or stepped up, I mean, is now the new thing or whatever, yeah. Wait. Okay, good enough.
go watch and
Tim says, it all just seems like obvious contract stuff to me. I assume Brett wanted more money. Daily Wire didn't want to pay more. Impasse. I don't get why anyone would be mad. It's not like Brett can't keep doing videos. Now you get another show in the cultural space. This is true. I think the anger largely comes from the fallout with Candace, on top of the fact that they replaced her with her maid of honor. That's kind of weird. Could have been given Brett's blessings too, though. We will never know due to NDAs. NDAs are mutual, and you won't know because neither party wants to go to war publicly. NDAs are an excuse drama people use to create mystery. And anytime Brett could say anything she wants. Okay. I'm just taking a deep breath. This is 100% true. Okay, so Tim Pool does understand how business stuff works. Tim Pool does know how all of this stuff goes. So when he says stupid shit on stream, he is literally just fucking trolling. Yeah, I am Merc. Yeah, I'm sorry. That's why I was incurring psychic damage. Pool used NDAs as an excuse for business offers from years ago. Yes, I know. And he also had that huge, where he was mediating kind of the fight, or not mediating, but he was like taking sides really in the fight between Daily Wire and Steven Crowder. Okay, so it's all just for show. He does understand, or it's a grift. So he does understand, like, yeah, this is all true. Respectfully, I feel like you shouldn't speak for Brett or what she can do unless you've spoken to her. Oh, so Candace Owens has now come in to perform while Tim Pool is being honest. Or maybe his honesty here is like part of the performance, I guess. Maybe I misunderstood your intention when you wrote, at any time Brett can say anything she wants. Maybe you meant equals. NDAs can technically be violated. Parking that aside and speaking more broadly, I find that the purpose of NDAs should be simply to protect important company information. I make my employees send one-pagers to protect information about addresses, contacts, information about my kids, etc. I've never put an employee under an NDA contract because I was worried about them telling the truth about how I treated them. I think that is at the core of the current NDA debate. Hold on. So to be clear, all terms of employment for Candace Owens, all of their compensation, everything, all of that is, none of that is NDA'd. None of those negotiations are NDA'd. This is at the heart of what Kanye was hitting at 2 years ago. Like I said, Ye was making a lot of important points about predatory contracts in industries where you have, bro, like Kanye West was the first person to talk about predatory contracts in the music industry. Oh my God. What is, Jesus, what is Candace Owens, like 15? What is, okay. The ChatGPT response.
We have so much scientific breakthroughs, and a big part of it is
At Destiny, it's subjective. If a person perceives that the CEO is a corrupt dude, isn't it the same as someone perceives Trump as corrupt? Who decides when vigilantism is good or bad? Wouldn't support for this or that bring only chaos? If you think that every single thing in life is subjective, my dude, then every single word I say is subjective and nothing I say even means anything. So I don't know why you're asking me this question.
a pretty cool statistic where 80% of scientists that have ever lived are alive today.
Oh, yeah.
because this is the time when they started becoming
Sure. It
scientists.
used to be very rare to be a scientist.
And through that collaboration, there's been an exponential growth. But then there's going to be a rate limiting step because there's not that many people to keep growing the field of science.
AGI will solve that problem.
So that's the next factor that comes into it. Amazon, and the reason why its ability to be at the level where it is because of incentives. And incentives aligning creates a really clear road for something like Amazon to occur. So you have incentivization from capitalism, people that want those products,
Yes.
the products being able to be made at a reasonable way, area for storage, all these things aligning together because we all uniformly agree that's what we want. And I think it's very easy for incentives to shift because humans are not always rational. And there's a lot of emotional components, wars, political divisiveness, disease, that can interrupt the algorithmic growth that we've seen in the past.
It has never interrupted it up until never. So if you look at all of the important events in geological history, biological history, cultural anthropological history, and the history of development, technology, and civilization, you can plot them all on the same log scale, and they basically don't move up and down, accounting for wars, holocausts, massive natural disasters. There's a reason for that, at least a candidate hypothesis. It's a very mysterious thing to see in the data. The data is crystal clear about it. Like, how the hell did World War II not slow down progress? Because there are two things that allow progress to happen. One is abundance. Like, you have time to work on cool shit. You have money to work on cool shit. You develop cool shit. The other is incentive, the impetus to make something happen because of difficulty. And these work kind of as top and bottom end buffers to the rate of progress. When you have good times, you have a huge abundance, but not a lot of incentive to make shit happen that's cool because it doesn't matter. Everything's kind of nice, so who cares? Like, really, is it really more important to make the next amazing iPhone? Like, the iPhone's pretty goddamn good. Like, who cares? However, when you get into wars, natural disasters, that's when the incentive to make radical innovations really pops up and seems to cover that difference. So what we see is a very homogenous rate overall. Now, there are...
I don't know if that's necessarily true, that there's no incentive to create crazy cool new things in times of peace, that it's only war. If I had to guess, like, most of the like microprocessor improvements and everything have probably come in like periods of peace or like unrelated to war stuff directly, at least would be my guess.
Are absolutely declivities and proclivities throughout, but in the grand historical sense, they seem to so far be very minor. Like the Cambrian explosion of life on Earth seems to be a big deal when you look at it, but when you spread out the timeline, you're like, oh, it's actually quite predictable that would have happened, I guess. It's all on the same curve, so...
Yeah, I think about it like I think of when investors pitch you their deck and they say, what's that line? Past results don't necessarily reflect future outcomes.
Sure, sure. And
So
that's
I say all of that
absolutely-
with that in mind of how the future plays out. And it's been interesting how the natural human buffer that you discuss exists and has guided us here. And then there's also the regulation of it all and the wars and the economic progress of it all. Like, there was talk about social media just continuing to grow in a way that was becoming unreasonable. And then you see young people say, well, I'm kind of getting bored of doing the same thing, of posting perfect images on Instagram. Now, you know what? The less tailored, less structured.
Streaming.
Yeah, exactly. Streaming.
Live.
Yeah, live. So, like, it's not always been clear to me how the future will adapt to current technologies. And I'm always aware of that when trying to make predictions. And that's why, even though I probably would have agreed with someone who was very poo-pooing AI 10 years ago, but not because I too poo-poo AI, I just poo-poo their ability to make a good prediction.
Sure. Most predictions that are very specific end up getting a lot wrong,
Yeah.
100%. But we can just go based on generalities. The amount of total intelligence in our society has been increasing exponentially for all of measured time, and it looks like it's going to continue to do that. They've done lots of work on theoretical limits of intelligence based on like physics and information theory, and the limits of intelligence are preposterous, like way out of reach of anything you could surmise. Like, you could hypothetically turn like a decent fraction of the Earth's mass into a computer, And then, like, the amount of intelligence it has is like humans are like a fungal growth on the Earth's crust level of like occupying the solar system. People are like, what about physical limits? Like, we could just mine Jupiter for matter. And like, I can't like there's like a storm on Jupiter, the eye or whatever, that's like 3 times bigger than the Earth. Like,
Argument, the healthcare guy might have been better if the idea is a side effect can be beneficial, not harmful. Even then, you could deny his insurance and you would say the drug was made for that. Oh, somebody else actually emailed me a point too that I forgot, because we'd learned this in the ivermectin debate. No, hydroxychloroquine debate. Was hydroxychloroquine, is that a drug that's prescribed for lupus? HCQ, is that how people abbreviate it? That I think for a little bit, I know they don't prescribe Ozempic anymore for weight loss, but I think for a while, I think they were prescribing Ozempic, I think off-label for weight loss, like a while ago, but they were running into shortages for people that need Ozempic for type 2 diabetes. And I think they started to discourage doctors from doing that because like Ozempic was primarily a drug developed for type 2 diabetes, and those people like actually really need it, not just like overweight people to curb appetite, but yeah. Yes, my mom's on hydroxychloroquine for lupus. Are you sure? Because I thought that she was on my dick for lupus. Cake, I want to command a /dunce somebody so I can put a dunce hat on them every time I talk about fucking their mom. Jader, make this happen. End of day today.
It's a lot of hydrogen, you know? So the thing about physical limits, you don't really get a big limit on that one. And then you think about trajectories. Trajectories have been good so far. And you think, okay, so if intelligence increases a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more, you can start to see certain problems kind of melting away, because a lot of the problems that are extant right now are because of a lack of intelligence.
I feel like Bald is brushing over things like the Bronze Age collapse and other cataclysms, which if you looked at a log scale graph would hide a lot of human suffering. Things could be better in a few hundred years. People are concerned if AI will cause turmoil in the short/medium term. Yeah, the issue is that like there's a big problem with pattern recognition that I haven't figured out how to simplify. Like, this is one of the few things I always tell people, that you should be able to simplify any concept to make somebody intuitively understand it. But this is one that I don't know how to simplify. It's very easy to look at a huge like scale of things and to have like a very convincing idea of what's happening, even if it's like not at all correct. If somebody looks at something like this, and somebody tells you that this is a circle, and you're like, okay, I'm not really seeing it. And they draw, or it's like circle-ish, and they draw a thing. Like it's like a circle. Like, people will very quickly be like, yeah, okay, yeah, that's kind of there, yeah, and it's like kind of, and that's like kind of there, yeah. Like you kind of see a circle, yeah, sure, yeah, maybe, yeah. Like people, and then all these things become like, there's other explainers for these. They just like fall to the wayside. Anytime you have a bunch of information or a lot of data, it's very easy to start like cherry picking what you are looking at and to just say that this is this and ignore everything else. A really good manifestation of this, in my opinion, is called technical analysis in stock markets, where people think that there are like emerging patterns, like the double bullhorn, or the fucking, the dick and balls, the dog face, Like people think that there are these patterns that emerge in markets, and if they follow, a technical analysis closely enough, that they can predict future market movements. But the reality is when you retrospectively look at it, you can always justify whatever model, but prospectively, you really have almost no predictive power. And the issue with like Mike so confidently stating these things, like human history has existed in like the blink geologically on that time spectrum, like in the blink of an eye, like right now he's making all these predictions about like maybe total intelligence or human improvement or blah, blah. It might be the fact that on a geological time scale, how old is our star system? Is it like 4 billion years old, 7 billion years old? I don't remember. The universe is like 14, right? Like humanity is like here. Like maybe we come and we go in like the next 100 years. And in that case, it's nothing. It's like a blip. Like somebody could generalize, like on average, humanity doesn't even exist on this planet in the average. And so to make like all these super bold predictions based on a large data set insofar as human history is concerned, but a very minor data set insofar as like the planet is concerned, even Homo sapiens, 100,000 years old, 300,000 years old. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not saying he's necessarily wrong. I'm just saying people, I think, sometimes get way too confident when they are picking out these data points and they're like, this is actually the pattern of everything. War equals innovation. And it's like, I'm sure, I don't have the background to say, but I'm sure we could go back and find wars or periods of time where people were fighting and actually things just got shittier for everybody. There weren't a lot of great technological improvements. And then we can go through periods of relative peace, like the 90s and the 2000s, and we can find lots of technical improvements, right? Tons of technological improvements. So, yeah, I don't know.
Here's something fun and wildly politically incorrect. So, as you measure people's political opinions, you scale them against proxies or direct measurements of their intelligence, there is a massive degree of consensus on political opinions as intelligence scales in either way.
He's going to say the smarter you are, the more likely you are on the top to be a liberal, and the dumber you are on the bottom, the more likely you are to be a liberal, and that there's going to be a hump in the middle for conservatives. That's my guess.
People who are less intelligent on average, measured however you like, tend to be more authoritarian in both the regard of social and economic freedom.
Just kidding. He's using the libertarian graph.
So people that are less intelligent tend to not be for social liberties. They're not super big fans of gay rights, trans rights, women's rights, the whole thing. And they're not big fans of economic freedom in general. They seem to think that more government regulation is the way to do things. Like anytime they see something wrong, they go, there should be a law against that. People on average, as they become more intelligent, seem to become more libertine in their attitudes. They favor a freer economy, substantially less and more intelligent regulation, and they favor a more libertine approach to social things, like live and let live kind of attitude. And so if you manage to increase the amount of intelligence in the system, it's going to cause a predictably better place for all of us.
Hold on, wait. I'm sorry. I need to hear this again.
As they become more intelligent, seem to become more libertine in their attitudes. They favor a freer economy, substantially less and more intelligent regulation, and they favor a more libertine approach to social things, like live and let live kind of attitude.
Fuck. Do they link all the studies? I'd be curious to see what he's referring to there. I don't think he would just make this up, but I'm curious what they're measuring there.
Tend to be more authoritarian in both the regard of social and economic freedom. So people that are less intelligent tend to not be for social liberties. They're not super big fans of gay rights, trans rights, women's rights, the whole thing. And they're not big fans of economic freedom in general. They seem to think that more government regulation is the way to do things. Like anytime they see something wrong, they go, there should be a law that against.
One thing as well, I'm trying not to fall into this like reductive trap because I'm worried a little bit that I fall into reductive traps of saying that like nothing can be anything because everything can be reduced to something else. But when you say poorer people are less inclined to believe in economic freedom, I think that the words that you hear are poorer people are less inclined to believe that we should have more economic freedom insofar as how we engage with or participate in the economy. So they need more regulation. However, from a poorer person's perspective, there isn't very much economic freedom, and the regulation would actually enable more of that. I think you have to be careful when you read some of these things. I don't even think Mike would necessarily disagree with that. He might just say, well, yeah, sure, but I'm just saying, like, in a more precise way, or maybe even in a broader way, these things tend to be true, and there might be reasons why. So I'm not even sure if he would disagree with what I'm saying there, but when a poor person says, well, we need a regulation on this, or we need to do something here, regulations don't always mean less freedom. And more freedom doesn't always mean more freedom doesn't always mean more freedom. The example that I give all the time is, let's say that I have a neighborhood of 10 houses and we're all free to do literally anything we want. That might be the most oppressive environment because I'm worried that I could get killed or robbed at any point in time. And when we start reducing our freedoms, when we start making rules, no stealing, no killing, you actually unlock way more freedoms because, oh, cool, I can leave my house. It's not going to be broken into. I can walk on the street and I'm not going to be murdered, right? So by restricting some freedoms, you enable a whole bunch more freedoms. So, yeah, I would be careful not to be too, I don't think I'm being reductive. I think it's important to understand what people are saying when they say, like, oh, I want a regulation, or I want some freedom here or whatever, to just like, to reduce things to just say, like, well, more freedom versus less freedom. Well, what does that freedom actually mean? You know, what does it actually mean? This is why positive rights are important as well as negative rights, right? What does it matter? Who the fuck cares if everybody is entitled to a trial if you don't have a defender that's granted to you by the state, right? You have the freedom to represent yourself in court. Well, fuck me. Well, I don't know what the fuck a motion is or what pre-trial is. What, do I just show up early? And then you show up in court. I don't know the process. Or what, do I have to read all this shit, right? That negative right, the right to defend yourself in front of a jury, means fuck all if you don't have also some positive, some actual granting to you of a thing that allows you to take advantage of that right, you know? So, yeah.
Against that, people on average, as they become more intelligent, seem to become more libertine in their attitudes. They favor a freer economy.
And there could be, and there's some, fuck, I could go on and on. There could be a lot of other things that are aligning with this as well, right? Like a more intelligent person might be somebody with a higher proclivity towards higher education or more economic prosperity. So of course, they're in a position where they say, well, I think less regulation is actually way better. I actually think that there should be no regulation. Well, of course, because you have all the money in the world to take advantage of that environment, you know? Destiny, but what if positive rights can limit the negative rights of others to an extent? You have to, it's a balancing act. That's fine though. It's okay to limit the rights of some people because generally it affords all of society greater prosperity, right? You shouldn't have the right to murder somebody. You shouldn't have the right to steal from somebody. You shouldn't have the right to, you know, criticize me in my subreddit without getting permaban. Yeah, well, I fuck your mom.
Substantially less and more intelligent regulation, and they favor more libertine approach to social things like live and let live kind of attitude. And so if you manage to increase the amount of intelligence in the system, it's going to cause a predictably better place for all of us to live, because when you have peoples that tend to be lower intelligence on average running an institution or a country, wherever, they generally run it really poorly. And you have all of the social maladies that you can see in a variety of areas. Whereas as people become more intelligent, or as the aggregate of people plus machine intelligence becomes better, things get better overall. And so if you scale that out, at some point you're like, man, if our collective IQ, us plus machines, goes up another 10 points, a lot of places are going to be freer, more prosperous, and cleaner.
Also, I don't think anyone has a solid definition or concept of what intelligence really is. I think we do. I think we know a lot more about that than people give credit for, but that's a whole other, I think, subject matter.
And more stable and have less war. Because if you think about it for like a little bit, you know, basic economics, very basic economics, war almost never makes logical sense. Almost ever. Like, should we attack the Netherlands? Why? To get the resources. Like, we could just buy the resources. Like, we can get them for free. Like, no, you still need to buy them because then some of us live there and they sell us that stuff. like the whole war for oil nonsense is just almost certainly just.
Oh man. He's not a is he a Trump supporter? People like him and Tom. I can't spell his name. I'm so sorry. Please don't ever show him that I typed his name right. Bill. The impact theory guy. This guy has such a good thought process. Oh my God, he has such a good thought. He's got a good brain. I've spoken to this guy a lot privately. I have a lot of personal respect and business respect, respect for this guy. God, he goes to some crazy places, and I'm worried it's gonna happen with Mike. We'll see what happens. Oh boy, we'll see where we go. But this is good. He's thinking. I respect this, right? And I say this all the time. When we go to war, why would we go to war for resources? We just buy them. It's cheaper. It's better. It's more efficient. It just makes way more sense. It's so much better to do that. Like, why would I just not buy your shit, you know?
Some of us live there and they sell us that stuff. Like the whole war for oil nonsense is just almost certainly just pure nonsense. There's all the war for oil in the modern time has just not occurred.
Well,
Now you could argue, now there is an intelligent way to argue like war for oil such that we go to war with some countries or we are involved in certain conflicts because we like to protect our ability to facilitate global petroleum markets, right? That's a more true statement. I think one that I would probably agree with, although I would carefully qualify because I'm not expertised in knowing all of that history and the geographics of all of that. But like, I think broadly speaking, we do have an interest in OPEC and petroleum markets, and we probably flex our military to ensure, you know, to facilitate that. But it's not like we don't go to war with Iraq to literally suck the oil out of the ground and steal it, you know? The only time that's ever happening is when your mom is sucking it out of me and stealing it. Yeah. Nathan, get the fuck out of here. Go away.
That's that emotional reasoning that we were talking about in
100%.
humans.
And so like as you scale up your intelligence, your emotional reasoning tends to capture less and less of your cognitive.
Am I misunderstanding or is he agreeing with you? He said war for oil didn't happen. You're misunderstanding me. I said I agree with him. I think it's a good thought process. But also, I don't think I've agreed or disagreed with anything he's saying so far. I'm just expanding. Expand. God, fuck! That movie was good. This was a good movie. Wait, hold on. I'm trying to think if I'm rose tinting. This is a good movie, right? I feel like I have fond memories of this movie. Fuck, was it? Hold on, let me make sure it's not. My brain isn't fucking me. It's mid? I thought it was good. Oh, it was good. I'll take good. Okay, it got a 92%. What did the audience give it? 87. 98%. Okay, there we go. Okay. This is a good movie. Okay, good movie, good movie. You disagreed with him earlier about incentives during war times and strawmanned him. I don't get why you do this so often. I am the best faith internet commentator. Okay. So 1, suck my dick. Okay. After your mom gets off it. Okay. 2, I don't think I disagreed with him that there are incentives during wartime. I'm just saying don't fall into the trap of thinking we need war for incentives. I don't think that's true.
Give me one reason why I don't fire.
This is a good movie. Watch it if you want. Okay. But don't right now. Okay.
I don't know if I agree with that.
It's just demonstrably true empirically. Tends to capture less.
You have
and
to be
less
really careful. Oh, fuck. I don't know how Mike has been for his whole life. I don't know like how old he is. He speaks in ways. I feel like I spoke like this in my 20s, or at least my attitude was like this. When somebody's like, I'm not sure about that. And you're like, empirically, it's true. You can say that sometimes, but you should be ready to cite a study or something. And you should reserve those types of statements for like when it's really, 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 really true. Okay. Because Mike is making some very, very, very broad claims about like the organization and progress of all of human society. Jesse, I'm a bit behind. You said 30-year life expectancy in the past is a myth, but life expectancy in certain societies was very low. Not 30s exactly, but e.g. in classical Greece, the life expectancy of a 15-year-old was 40 years. Sure, when I say life expectancy is a myth, but I'm not saying that it's a myth per se. I'm saying that people's understanding of like when you were 30 you would die, or like 40 you would die of old age and cancers or whatever. I'm saying that that's not really true. That's not what would happen. You would just have a much higher chance of like dying of a disease because there were no vaccines or microplastics in your balls, whichever one you prefer. There are certain diseases where you would just you get it and you die, or you would get things like you might be more likely to contract certain types of diseases just because of like lack of sanitation or stuff like that.
100%.
Humans,
And so, like, as you scale up your intelligence, your emotional reasoning tends to capture less and less of your cognitive bandwidth.
I don't know if I agree with that.
You should know that Mike has outdated opinions on exercise science and hasn't changed them due to audience capture. He's not really a good scientist. Oh, okay. Well, I have no idea. We haven't watched Dr. Mike for lifting shit for a while because fuck the gym. We go to the gym of the Library of Alexandria Wikipedia now.
It's just demonstrably true empirically.
Well,
On average, now there are absolutely exceptions of smart people who are really having a lot of feelings.
I'm not talking about the extremes. I just see that, like, as IQs and Nobel laureates have attested, that they oftentimes are able to convince themselves of wildly inaccurate theories and the belief that whatever they're saying is true when it's absolutely not true. That's also been shown. And then also there's a chicken or the egg effect here, where it's when you're poorer and have less education, you need to have a little bit more of an authoritative mindset to succeed in order to be practically successful. And when you're wealthy and you have less to worry about, you think about being more free.
Oh, shit! Oh, shit. I think I'm being too loud. True. Huh, I did pre-watch. What can I say? Oh, I can't even say I was late today. I woke up early today to pre-watch this.
And you think about other things, whereas when you're poorer, you have to survive. So that it frees you up to think more liberally and peacefully, which is why there's always so much disagreement of people who live on the coasts that have money versus people who are struggling to be rising in society and they want their children to focus and live.
Chances you get Dr. Mike on Bridges, you could discuss healthcare. Okay, I'm gonna keep doing this. The only reason I keep bringing this up, okay, is because I've picked up a lot of super left audience members as I fight with conservatives, and we're still gonna fight with conservatives because fuck Trump, okay? But I need to continue to adjust expectations, and I need to bleed off the socialists and the commies, okay? A doctor's take on healthcare, unless they're like really like objective or whatever, should always lean pretty anti-insurance or whatever. I would expect a doctor to give pretty anti-health insurance takes. They're antagonistic towards insurers, and they should be, because a doctor's job, a doctor's goal as a worker is to get as much money for the services that he provides as possible. So if a doctor comes in and shits on an insurance company, doesn't mean that he's making an objectively correct argument any more than if I bring in an insurance provider who's antagonistic towards healthcare providers, right? Doesn't mean that healthcare providers are all bad, right? These people, these two figures in the market necessarily have an antagonistic perspective. That's why I've had a ton of people, doctors, nurses, and people that work in health insurance that have all wanted to come on and chat. But if I really wanted to do this, I would have to facilitate like a whole ass fucking panel. And to be honest, the healthcare shit is absurdly fucking complicated. Like that's probably the one consistent thing that every single person that's emailed me to complain, because I've had insurers that have emailed me to bitch about doctors and healthcare providers. I've had doctors that have emailed me to bitch about healthcare insurers and hospitals. I've had everybody bitch about everything. But the one consistent thing that shows up in everybody that's contacted me is that all of it is retardedly fucking complicated, which is one of the reasons why I think that things like a public option or single payer can help a lot, in that not even necessarily on cost, although it would help a little bit, but it would like simplify things and make things a lot more transparent so that people have an idea of what the fuck is actually happening. Because it's just very fucking confusing. Every single part about it is very fucking confusing. Even for people that work in it, it is very fucking confusing. Yeah. I would say that doctors' primary objective is to provide the best care possible to patients. So I understand the emotional tie-in that we have to doctors, okay? But you can't think of it this way, because it doesn't, because it's hurting the ability of a citizen to view how everybody's place in that marketplace functions. For instance, when you go to a automobile shop, it is technically true that the person servicing your car, his incentive is to make your car the best it possibly could be. But this is why with almost no wear, maybe every time you go for new brake pads, it's like, you should also probably, throw some rotors in there too. Or, I know we're like 10 or 20,000 miles early, but maybe you should get that timing belt replaced. Or I know it's synthetic oil, but, maybe 2,000 or 3,000 miles, it might run a little bit cleaner. Those things are all like technically true. It's never going to hurt you to do any of these repairs or replacements early, but is it necessary? Probably not. Like, will it help your car run better? Probably. Is it worth the money? Almost certainly not. But remember, their incentive is the highest standard of care possible for your car, because that's also what makes them the most money, right? Again, but I have to hedge everything. I hate all of you so much because I have to hedge so much. I'm not even saying that's bad. I'm not saying that doctors are bad. And I'm not saying that automobile repair people are bad. I'm just saying that that is their incentive. That is their prerogative. Is to provide or sell as much care as possible. Yeah. I think even a doctor email that I got today actually, I think even he mentioned that because rates have come down on procedures lately, that doctors, they still make more money because they try to sell more to more people. And I think this is even a physician. This is a long email. I'll just read one paragraph of this. This is where providers are supposed to be the informed party in the room and give medical advice to aid in the decision-making process. You can imagine this becomes extremely difficult when patients are coming in with the above expectations. Oh, he's complaining about how patients will come in and they just want a pill to fix everything. It's hard to tell patients to exercise more, lose weight, quit smoking when they expect some pill to solve all their problems. A doctor can beg a patient to stop smoking all he or she wants, but it's ultimately the patient's choice. Despite this, doctors are quantitatively evaluated by patient outcomes, like how happy patients are, how healthy patients are, and how many times patients get admitted to a hospital, etc. So what can a physician do but focus on things that they have more direct control over? Prescribe a patient that medication, order that lab test, perform that surgery. Don't get me wrong, doctors also play a role in the high cost of healthcare. We get paid really well for the job we do compared to other countries. I'd say even with a high initial cost of loans and training years, people are obviously still pursuing the field since the ROI must be big enough. And like any person in any job, it's hard to tell a person you're getting paid less this year. So even though Medicare reimbursements have continuously decreased, physicians compensate by seeing more patients or performing more procedures/operations each year. This hidden incentive will ultimately also contribute to healthcare costs. This got a lot of random stuff, but yeah, I'm not saying anything is, I'm not saying they're bad people. If you don't upsell, you are kind of okay. If you don't provide the minimum product/service, you get hella punished. No? Yeah, but the issue is that in American, when you're talking about healthcare, minimum service sounds really bad, because the problem with healthcare is what you are truly and really doing is you are putting a dollar value on pain and suffering in human life. That's what you are truly doing in the healthcare service. And that feels bad, but it has to happen. And sometimes there are tough decisions to make and they feel bad, but like maybe they need to be made, right? Like this goes into the idea of, is it appropriate? Like even talking about it sounds icky, but like, let's say you have a person who's 84 years old, not in the best health. Maybe we'll say type 2 diabetic, we'll say obese. Maybe this person contracts a cancer with a 60% prognosis at 5 years with no treatment or something, right? If they have chemo, radiation, all this, like, is it better for their outcomes? Yeah, for sure. But like in a system with limited resources where you've got like children dying of fucking leukemia shit, is it appropriate that that person gets that level of care? Now, people intuitively want to say, no, hold on, excuse me. Or they don't say, no, they shouldn't get it. They say, we don't make that. Of course they get that level of care, of course. But what you don't consider is like, you have limited resources. You can only treat so many people. You can only care for so many people. And nobody wants to have that conversation. Or, I mean, those conversations are happening whether you like it or not between healthcare providers, healthcare insurers, hospital administrators. But yeah, it's challenging.
The most strict lifestyle because they think that's the only way to achieve it, and they could be right given their circumstances. Do you think that could be a reasonable thought?
Maybe. So, to the first point of Nobel laureates questioning their ability or illustrating their ability to sort of justify anything they like, the fact that they're introspective enough to know that that's happening is already alienating them in a lone little group.
Well, I don't think they're aware of it. I think
That's a dishonest framing because someone ultimately profits from such decisions. My friend, why do you think it matters if somebody profits or not? What difference does it make? Whether or not somebody profits, there's still going to be a limitation in resources. Like, it could be that the government does it. The government has to make these exact same decisions. You know that like Medicare and Medicaid don't infinitely pay for every single procedure, right? Medicaid and Medicare also limit what's available to patients. Social healthcare systems in other countries also limit what's available to people. They don't have infinite levels of every single standard of care available for every single person through all of society. Like no country in the world does that. Maybe Switzerland does because they're fucking hella rich there. But like nobody can do that. Nobody can afford to do that.
I think we studying them.
Oh,
are
I
aware
see.
of it.
I think some of them have talked about it openly.
Maybe.
And we, being less intelligent than Nobel laureates.
How do you feel about doctors opposing expanding med schools / training more doctors? Significant effect. Feels like I've heard a lot or about it in a lot of countries through UNICEF medical awards. I don't know how true that is, so I can't say. But I will say that that is in a doctor's prerogative. A doctor theoretically should want less doctors because it increases the value of their degree. There's nothing wrong with people negotiating on their behalf. That's fine. They should. A doctor should want to make more money. A doctor should want to protect their specialty a bit more. And we, as patients, and maybe even as a country for the government for regulation, whatever, should fight against that. That's fine. Just like a labor union should be fighting for their workers. A police union should be fighting so that no cop ever gets charged with a crime. And the justice system should be fighting to prosecute everybody that does commit a crime. And, like as a customer, I want the most fucking food I can possibly get for the cheapest amount possible. And the restaurant should want to serve me, the most fancy fucking plate of bullshit with nothing on it for as much as possible. This tension is where all of these things are negotiated. Like we negotiate all of these all the time. In capitalism, we do it with cost, right? We pay more for things and we pay less for other things, and people charge more for some things and charge less for things. Like that's just how it works. Yeah.
Probably less self-aware than they are. And if we're self-aware of it, you have to ask, what about people of substantially lower intelligence? They're substantially less aware in general.
Quote, if everyone acts only in their own interest, the system works, end quote. Good job, Whit. You're like 3 seconds away from like catching up to economic theory of the last like fucking 1,000 years or whatever. Like you're almost there, buddy. Keep going.
General. And so...
What a mature take. Now, if only you would extend that to homeowners. What makes you think I don't... Okay, let's sit and wait. Tanif Howler, what makes you think I don't extend that to homeowners? Can you give me an example of that? You can meme on it, but that's your take, bud. I'm not memeing on it. If everybody acts in their own interest, that's how you get people to negotiate for whatever a negotiated middle is. If you go into a system assuming that people are going to act against their interest, you're always creating a system that's set up for failure. There's no system that works where you assume that somebody's going to operate against their own interest. What's it? Give me an example of a system like that has ever worked, ever. LOL, you hate on homeowners for not wanting to expand housing. Not saying you are wrong. Yeah, of course I hate on homeowners for not wanting to expand. I think it hurts overall the market, but I understand why they do it. What do you mean? I can hate somebody and understand it at the same time. I literally said this a billion times. I feel like I've given this explanation a billion times. One of your biggest issues in cities when it comes to upzoning places is that your most loyal voters are going to be people that own homes. These are people that have the largest roots in the area they live in. They're the most invested, they're most likely to vote. And if you're a homeowner, of course you're going to be voting to restrict zoning as much as possible. It increases the value of property. Why the fuck would you want to lower property values, right? Homeowners are naturally antagonistic towards renters. They're naturally antagonistic towards people that don't own a home. And not just landlords, but people that own their own home have a natural antagonism against people that rent and don't own. You are incentivized as a homeowner to keep home and housing prices as high as possible. Of course. I've never denied that. I say that all the fucking time. Bro, literally disgusting. You were just mashing that thing. Do better. Your mom was mashing my thing.
Aware than they are. And if we're self-aware of it, you have to ask, what about people of substantially lower intelligence? They're substantially less aware in general. And so they're apt to make mostly emotionally biased choices. As a matter of fact, many people, when you ask them what they think about politics, are answering a completely different question. They're answering, actually,
probably the advocating for your own interests should not cross the boundary into regulatory capture, right? Things like, fuck, we looked at this up before. I think things like rent-seeking behavior, I don't remember what my opinion was before, but we read about this. I think rent-seeking behaviors are things that I think we should always try to avoid. So you either make them illegal, or you prosecute people that do, well, then you prosecute people that do it, or you find ways to regulate that type of behavior. Yes, rent-seeking behavior should probably always be avoided, yes. Okay, good troll wit. Destiny, are you saying society would be better if we all acted like psychopaths? Do you think that it's psychopathic to advocate for your own interests?
And if we're self-aware of it, you have to ask, what about people of substantially lower intelligence? They're substantially less aware in general.
Ooh, talking about my chatters.
And so they're apt to make mostly emotionally biased choices. As a matter of fact, many people, when you ask them what they think about politics, are answering a completely different question. They're answering, actually.
Yes, it is psychopathic to advocate for only your interests. Okay, well, it's normal, ordinary human behavior. So I don't know what to tell you. Sorry. You keep telling people to stop discriminating in their mind based on their compulsive preferences and gathered identities. What is your fundamental advice to achieve this? I don't know, just stop doing it? Or no, don't ask broad questions like that. Okay.
And if we're self-aware of it, you have to ask, what about people of substantially lower intelligence? They're substantially less aware in general. And so they're apt to make mostly emotionally biased choices. As a matter of fact, many people, when you ask them what they think about politics, are answering a completely different question. They're answering, actually, I'm wearing my Thomas Sowell shirt to illustrate that exact thing. It's a former position of his.
Oh, Jesus. I didn't even realize.
Current position of his. Most people feel a certain way about politics. They don't think a certain way about politics, which is the wrong thing altogether, because politics is asking the...
Wow, Tanif Hollow, thanks for the 10 gifted subs.
Things, former position of his, current position of his. Most people feel a certain way about politics. They don't think a certain way about politics, which is the wrong thing altogether, because politics is asking the question of how do you run a society for the maximum benefit, however you define that. It's a technical question.
That is a loaded assumption to assume that that's what politics is, but unless we're being subjected by what like the most beneficial society is or whatever, but
politics, which is the wrong thing altogether, because politics is asking the question of how do you run a society for the maximum benefit, however you define that. It's a technical question. It's a machine question. It's not.
Destiny, I don't agree with them, but isn't the argument people are making is that in a job where you should be trying to save lives or increase quality of life, why would self-interest be better? What do you mean? Because doctors are human beings. They're not machines. A doctor wants to earn a salary, earn a paycheck, probably be compensated for the extreme level of knowledge acquisition and skill acquisition, right? All the fucking training, the residency, the brutal work hours. Like, you have to compensate a doctor. It's a human being. People aren't machines. They're not going to sit here and just go out into the world and do everything for everybody else and have no interest in their own well-being or outcome. In that case, you would just do a different job. Why the fuck would you want all of the stress and everything that's incurred in being a physician if there's no reward for it? Do you think that people are just having a hard time coping with the idea of having to deal with the consequences of their lifestyles, like eating, smoking, and drinking too much? What? No, I don't think so. Or well, I don't think that's what this, yeah. Why does this apply to every doctor? It applies to every human being. What are you talking about?
Maximum benefit, however you define that. it's a technical question. It's a machine question. It's not a question of how you feel about things. Most people feel rather than think about these kinds of topics. People who are more intelligent tend to think on the margins more than not, and people who are less intelligent tend to feel more than not. And so on average, if you think Nobel laureates are biased, you should talk to someone of profoundly lower intelligence, and you will see probably exclusively bias and almost nothing else. And
I wonder what the
wholehearted
research of that actually
confidence
shows
in
from an
one's opinions.
anthropology standpoint.
Give it a look. It's
Yeah,
not pleasant.
because no,
Oh man, I feel like I'm gonna see. Oh man, we are in a. This is it. Or we're locked. We're trapped in the dialectic now. Wouldn't you want doctors to be the best faith people, though, rather than have them economically motivated? Not necessarily. No, it depends on what they're being paid for. Like, would I want a doctor who's the most like caring and compassionate doctor, or would I want a doctor who is the most selfish and economically motivated doctor who gets paid per patient saved? I mean, like, it depends. Like a compassionate doctor might feel really bad for one kid with autism and spend all of his time with that kid. And another guy might say, fuck, I don't know if it's worth it for this guy and I can save 10 other lives, so I'm going to do that. Right? But obviously it's a very reductive example, but no, like, people can be incentivized. I feel like I'm doing the invisible hand meme. Like, people can be incentivized to do things for themselves that are still beneficial for society. Destiny in contrarian mode. Where are the volunteer doctors? Like, you can look up the, we can see in the Bureau of Labor Statistics, like, the 20 occupations with the highest median annual pay: anesthesiologist, orthodontist, oral and maxillofacial surgeons, pediatric surgeons, orthopedic surgeons, ophthalmologists, radiologists, psychiatrists, physicians, obstetricians and gynecologists, neurologists, emergency medicine, physicians, dermatologists, cardiologists, physicians, all other, prosthodontists, dentists, family medicine physicians, general internal medicine physicians. Like, these are all the highest compensated people in society. You tell me none of these people care about how much money they make? They all just happen to be the most well-paid people in all of society? They're all just here because they're compassionate? Highest compensated relative to who? Relative to all other wage earners in society? What do you... Okay.
no, like, even from a practical standpoint of what I've experienced in my life, I treat two very distinct populations of where I practice medicine, where I have people who live in the wealthy community where my hospital.
Wait. Fuck. Okay, actually, one more question. You do understand that most people aren't aware they have a choice in discriminating or not discriminating, assuming or shedding identities? Just asking because you seem genuinely surprised by this. You do understand that most people aren't aware they have a choice. Well, yeah, of course I understand that. It depends on a lot of people. Yeah, it depends on your upbringing and everything. These are very general questions. I don't know, like, you're asking me to solve, like, a person, how they put together, like, the most fundamental aspects of their mind. I don't know, have a different life. If they are the highest compensated, then why are all billionaires CEOs? CEOs aren't employees. The Bureau of Labor Statistics is tracking wages for employees, not people that own businesses.
Practical standpoint.
Almost nothing else. and
I wonder what the
wholehearted
research of that actually
confidence
shows
in
from an
one's opinions.
anthropology standpoint.
Give it a look.
Oh wait,
Yeah,
fuck! I
because-
didn't even finish my point on this. I'm sorry because I got baited by a question. I feel like this whole conversation is going to be Dr. Mike on the left
Because-
is being way, way, way too charitable or wishy-washy with advantages of wealthier, more intelligent, or more conscientious people or whatever. And then Dr. Mike on the right is going to be way too narrow in how much better those people are versus people of lesser intelligence or whatever. I feel like that's going to be this whole conversation. This reminds me of the, actually, I don't care. Yeah, that's right. Shed the lefties, okay? This reminds me of when people say things like high skill versus low skill labor. And people will be like, low skill? Where's the Reddit post? There's no such thing as low skill worker. There'll always be like a video of some guy doing some like a menial task impressively, and then people will like, yeah, one is the guy with the water jugs. The suggestion that any job is low skill is a myth perpetuated by wealthy interests to justify inhumane working conditions, little to no healthcare, and low wages. Plus, being a waitress has made me and many others better at our jobs than those who have never known that life. Okay, these two statements are completely and totally unrelated to each other. Some jobs are easier to learn than other jobs. I'm sorry, but that's just like I'm not even sorry. That's just like a true statement. The idea that oh yeah, this. Oh, somebody in my subreddit made fun of it. Fuck you. Unskilled labor is a capitalist myth, but oh. Wait, what? This tweet blew up. Okay. Sorry. I just saw this. He's putting jugs in tubes. Like, yeah, this definitely takes skill for sure. Like you would have to learn to do this. But like, do you think it's easier to learn how to do this or to like learn to be a doctor or a lawyer? Or like when people say low skill versus high skill, usually they're talking about the percentage of people that can achieve a skill and the level of training required. It did not take this man 4 years to be able to put the jug in the tube like this, right? But, okay. Not to take anything away from his work, but I feel that people are so disillusioned and want the world to be perfectly fair and capitalist bad because our society is so easy nowadays. Have we created soft-minded individuals? Or do you think these people have always been around? I mean, kind of, but I mean, it's better to have soft-minded individuals than a society full of people where everybody thinks everybody should be fucked. So it's not like necessarily a bad thing. We just have to like adjust our expectations and our understanding of reality appropriately so that we can maximize all the outcomes for people, basically, right?
That actually
Confidence
shows
in
from an
one's opinions.
anthropology standpoint.
Give it a look. It's
Yeah,
not
because
pleasant.
no, like even from a practical standpoint of what I've experienced in my life, I treat two very distinct populations of where I practice medicine, where I have people who live in the wealthy community where my hospital exists, and then I have people who are coming in for the community health aspect of it, charity care aspect, perhaps that are employed by the people who are very wealthy.
As someone who has been super low on the totem pole and incredibly high, the gap from unskilled to skilled is like 2 steps in sitting inside an office. If you think that, then you either work in a shitty office environment or you are a shitty office person, or maybe you were an incredibly competent lower totem pole worker. But also, I mean, it really depends on the type of job that you work, and it depends on, there's a lot of variables in there. The reality is there's a lot of shitty workers up and down the entire fucking totem pole. I'm gonna be honest, I want to fight with you intuitively on that because I think that like middle managers are some of the most important people in society in terms of facilitating work and projects and everything. But as a low skill worker, I also knew a lot of incompetent fucking loser management people. So, I mean, I get it. Like, there are people that suck at their job, but the reality is there's more people qualified to work at level 1 than there are at level 2, than there are at level 3, than there are at level 4. Like, wait, don't tell me Destiny actually advocated that physicians should make less money. 1, I never said that. 2, why? Wait, even if I did say that, what would be the problem? What do you think an appropriate salary for a doctor is? Should they make infinite money? If doctor, let's say tomorrow, a doctor said we should make $1 million a year, would you agree with that? Destiny, the only useless job is Agile Scrum Master. Just because you're too autistic to tell everybody what you're working on, okay, during your stand-up, doesn't mean you can disrespect the Scrum Master, and that's why you're banned.
And I see the problems that where I practice medicine,
sorry.
where
For the 15th time, we're going to replay this.
I have people who live in the wealthy community where my hospital exists. And then I have people who are coming in for the community health aspect of it, charity care aspect, perhaps that are employed by the people who are very wealthy. And I see the problems that they experience, their logic by how they approach the world, and the strategies that they each use to survive. And they're radically different in terms of looking at them on paper, but they're radically appropriate given their situation. I think
you're being very charitable.
I think if you're a single mother who's working 2 jobs, have 2 children, one of which that's struggling academically, you don't have the capacity or time to think about what a better world looks like for certain subsets of individuals.
He's going to say, a 135 IQ Jewish mother with high conscientiousness would never have 2 children and be single.
You're trying to be as practical and create the guardrails for the success of your immediate family. I think looking down upon that as dumb or wrong, I think misses the point of how that person got there.
Fuck. I think that I see where these guys are going to butt heads the entire for the entire show, because Dr. Mike, good version, is trying to avoid the normative judgment that comes along with like calling a person dumb or saying a person can't navigate an environment a certain way or is prioritizing certain things. And Dr. Mike Evil version is going to say that they're still dumb. Hold on. I'm trying to think of... Yeah, never mind. We got it. I am shedding the lefties. My prediction is I'm going to watch this video and I'm going to probably agree with the Dr. Mike Evil version more than the Dr. Mike Good version, but only slightly. But I'm also going to understand completely where Dr. Mike Good version is coming from. And I would even caveat and say we might have a better world if we have more of the Dr. Mike Good version than the Dr. Mike Evil version, even if the Dr. Mike Evil version is somebody I would agree with more. But let's see.
And therefore, we're judging a whole group of people for making a decision that, had we been in that situation, we would have made the same exact decision.
So like that's, oh, fuck, he's going to disagree.
You don't agree.
You don't agree.
So like, oh God, this is so awkward. Well, no, it's not really. I did, by the way, I took a formal IQ test. I got a 212, okay, 212 IQ. So I will use a personal example. Financially, I was in a really, really, really bad spot when I first got into streaming. On the verge of losing my house, behind on multiple bills. My life was pretty fucked. I never, ever, ever took a payday loan, and I never floated credit card debt. Because in my mind, I'm like, if I lose my house, lose my whatever, like if I lose it, I lose it. Why the fuck would I also rate myself with payday loans? It's financially, it's retarded. There's no point. If I foreclose, I foreclose. Fuck it, right? But that's only because I had the intelligence, however biological, whatever, versus I went to a decent school and knew finance or whatever and wasn't math retarded, because I knew that. So even in similar or identical situations, somebody with more education, IQ, conscience, whatever the fuck bullshit, whatever you want to measure, even in the exact same situation, people can make at least marginally better decisions. Now, maybe not like supremely better decisions, but at least marginally better decisions. Yeah, I'll say that.
Agree.
No.
Why is that?
Boy. So, a couple caveats. We're speaking in statistical generalities. So we're not trying to paint an entire group of people anyway. The group of people we're painting is also a statistical abstraction. It's not an actual group of people you could point to. One example of this is people talk about the poor, but like something like a third of
Right.
the group of people we're painting is also a statistical abstraction. It's not an actual group of people you can point to. One example of this is people talk about the poor, but like something like a third of the poor are just like people who just graduated high school. Most of them will end up quite wealthy. They're just at the wrong time of life. So you can't group them in with their.
I don't know what he means by that. Most of them will end up quite wealthy. They just graduated high school. As in, like, at the end of their life, they'll have like $1 million because they've saved for retirement, or I don't know what he means by that.
Various other demographic groups that are poor consistently throughout their lives.
And when you talk about the rich, it's about how
Rich
much
when?
money they have,
Right.
Or how much they
they're
earned
making,
this year.
right.
Because as Thomas
Right.
Sowell says,
Right. That's not always
that
the same.
changes
Oh,
every
yeah,
year
all the time. Yeah.
because the people that are extremely wealthy may not have earned a lot this year.
Sure. And they're also within any kind of category. Let's just say poor people. They're vastly different kinds of people in that, with vastly different kinds of behavioral patterns.
This is true.
But the behavioral patterns seem to be the number one correlate of what continues to keep you poorer than average or continues to push you on the trajectory of wealthier than average eventually.
Okay, that's true.
So when we say on average poor people do X, Y, Z, you can give me millions of counterexamples of poor people being very diligent, very organized, very conscientious, very thoughtful, and very coordinated in their action. And those people are much less likely to remain poor than the fraction of poor people that have the opposite of those characteristics. So when you look at wealthier people and poor people on average, you tend to find that wealthier people on average.
Ooh, there's like a very, 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 like there's a thing that you can say abstractly that's true, which is that, but it's like the most politically incorrect statement you could ever make, which is that 6 million was not enough. No, I'm just kidding. That wealthier people on average are probably better people than poor people on average. And there's a whole bunch of like correlative data that would probably show that on average, they're probably more empathetic, more compassionate, more intelligent, more whatever. But that gets into very uncomfortable areas. But
More conscientious, more goal-driven, more
oh shit, fuck, he's saying it. Okay.
that have the opposite of those characteristics. So when you look at wealthier people and poor people on average, you tend to find that wealthier people on average are more conscientious, more goal-driven, more organized, clear thinkers about things. They have lots of feelings just like everyone else, but they don't let the feelings take over as much as people who on average who are poor. But the averages kind of belie.
I don't know if I agree with that. I think that their intuitions are just better because they've been shaped and hammered and trained to be better. Now, whether that training was a response of their biological response to certain environments, or whether the environments themselves crafted or whatever, a certain response, like, I just think it's, you have to be careful not to put the cart before the horse.
Take over as much as people about things. They have lots of feelings just like everyone else, but they don't let the feelings take over as much as people who on average who are.
Like when you say they don't let their feelings take over as much on average, right? If me and a person from a much different background were in an area where something happened and the cops showed up, they might have an intuition to run immediately from the cops, and I might have an intuition to, hang back and talk as much as I can to the cops. That's not because I'm more deliberative and contemplative than the other person and want to see what's better for society. That's just because that's like my intuition, right? I came from at least growing up, until I was over 13, like upper middle class background, pretty trustworthy of cops in general. Even past that, I've never had problems with cops. Like I'll talk to cops, like, oh, it doesn't bother me that much. Yeah, but that's not like a contemplative, ethical, compassionate decision for society and rule of law. That's just like my intuition. So, and I think that you can probably extrapolate that or expand that to a lot of things. If I get into a car accident with somebody, I'm probably gonna, I can't even conceive of doing like a hit and run. We're probably gonna pull over and stop and trade insurance and fuck it. Yeah, we'll do whatever you have to do at a car accident. But that's not because I'm more contemplative or deliberative. Like the idea of doing a hit and run, that doesn't even enter my mind. Like I wouldn't even consider that. That just seems insane to me. Like, am I going to be on the run? Yeah.
They have lots of feelings just like everyone else, but they don't let the feelings take over as much as people who on average who are poor. But the averages kind of belie the...
Wait, hold on. I'm sorry, real quick. Pit stop. Another one. Says I couldn't articulate my argument about him being racist. Explains why he's racist and stupid. Doesn't reply. Is this here the biggest liberal streamer man? Destiny's position of support for Israel, like many liberals, is rooted in underlying hatred and racism towards Arab people. Oh, nice. And he's even got the cuck jokes. Good one. Wow. And actually, you know what? Can I just say this? Can I just say this? If I was going to watch a BBC fuck my woman, I would want it to be ABBA. ABBA's a handsome, nice dude. So you know what? If I do get into cuckoldry, ABBA is going to be my number one call. I am going to call him. Okay? So don't be a hater. All right? And also, friendly reminder, if somebody is truly a cuckold, okay, and they get off on the humiliation and all of that, technically, if you're humiliating them publicly, you're just playing into their fetish. So every time you type shit like this, if you truly believe I'm a cuckold, all you're doing is you're helping me jerk off to it at the end of the night. So don't ever forget. Okay, I quote tweeted this and I said, I disagree with him, but I'm too stupid to articulate why, so I'm just going to call him racist. Okay, apparently he responded, your argument was stupid because you're justifying apartheid from your ridiculous notion that Arab people just inherently hate Jewish people. The problem is that Zionists are ethnically cleansing Palestinians from their home, not that Arabs hate Jewish people. What? What you said didn't even make any sense and doesn't even map onto any of the debates I've had on this issue. I am probably, literally, question mark, one of the only people who debates this topic from a slightly more Zionist perspective and believes that religious/ethnic backgrounds don't even play the largest role in this conflict. Is my Sam Harris argument about that, is that public or is that on his, is that the paywalled part? You're not saying anything meaningful. You're just using buzzwords. If you want to argue, or if you want to chat, why do you say this? Nobody wants to, and I wouldn't. I don't even blame him. He's probably a fucking retard. If you want to chat about it, shoot me a DM, and we can set up a conversation. Smiley face. He said he would indeed debate you. Bet. Oh. Oh, well, hey, DM me. I'm live for 6 more hours. And I stream most days of the week. Okay, well.
The fact that it really goes, they are thinkers about things. They have lots of feelings just like everyone else, but they don't let the feelings take over as much as people who on average who are poor. But the averages kind of belie the fact that it really goes individual by individual. And whether or not you're rich or poor, you know the fact that it really goes as much as people who on average who are poor. But the averages kind of belie the fact that it really goes individual by individual. And whether or not you're rich or poor, you have no doubt, well, maybe no doubt, some people are not capable of having as many social interactions, but you've met at least 4 kinds of people, likely. Poor person who is like just a really conscientious, really organized, really thoughtful, calm person who's very intelligent, very motivated to improve their circumstance, even if they've been dealt a nasty hand, like they had married someone who was really good to them, that person died in an automobile accident, left them with 3 children, and now they work 2 jobs, and they're doing their goddamn best. That person...
Whenever someone starts calling you a cuck/humiliating you, you should start gooning Ultimate Defense. Oh, true. Holy shit. I should go into the fucking hyperbolic humiliation chamber, and I should condition myself to get turned on by humiliation porn. And I'll go to every debate again in sweatpants, and anytime somebody starts bringing up the cuck jokes, I'll just fucking pop a raging fucking hard on. And so that way they can know that, like, yeah, keep going. What'd you say? What'd you call me? That's the distributive homosexuality. What am I thinking of? What do you call it when you have when you do this? Is it transitive? When this does all this? There's a name for this. This equals some other bullshit. What is this called? Is it distribute? Yeah.
And their children.
I don't know how that would apply here. Close enough.
Through the genetic related.
Okay, sorry,
that person died in an automobile accident, left them with 3 children, and now they work 2 jobs, and they're doing their goddamn best. That person and their children, through the genetic relatedness of having those features inherited from them and the very nice father that unfortunately was taken too early, their children and them will probably be, over time, on average, expectedly rising through the income strata because...
Oh, man. I don't know what Dr. Mike's background, or the evil Mike's bald Mike, I don't know what his background is in terms of like researching this stuff, but he's like... He's getting dangerously close to a lot of Nazi talking points. I shouldn't say Nazi talking points. Race, real, alt-right talking points. That return to the mean.
They're just good at stuff. That's just who they are. They don't spend excessively. They don't make impulsive decisions as often, so on and so forth. So that's subtype number 1. Subtype number 2 of a poor person is when you like hang around them for long enough. You're like, don't say this to them personally, but you could be like, motherfucker, I'll tell you why you're poor. God damn it. You spend all of your money. You're addicted to like 10 different things. You have an I don't give a fuck attitude about basically everything. You've never invested a dime in improving yourself in any way whatsoever. You're rude to everyone around you. How are you possibly going to make money and hold on to it? In almost impossibility.
This is true, but this is why the goal should be to create better environments, right? Is to remove people's ability to make certain bad choices, if that makes sense, right? This is why you should outlaw or make highly regulated things like payday loans, because some people, given the proclivity to make a bad choice, will make a bad choice. There's nothing wrong with that. Stealing Stephen Fry's argument. Wait, what?
For example, if anyone tried to bully me, I had a very good response, which is, no, don't touch me, I'll get an erection. And I can't...
2 subtypes of poor people.
So for that second subtype, is that caused by society, a societal situation, or is that a genetic situation?
It's a combination of the 2, but genetics explains much more of the variance as far as literature I've consumed. Because both subtypes of poor people are exposed to roughly the same social influences, and it does not affect everyone the same way. There are some cultural elements there that have to be thrown in, because it's kind of like society writ large, there's genetics, but there's also an intermediary variable, culture. How do you process society and express?
Actually, Destiny actually fucked with my head so much that to this day, I can never remember if the word is caliphate or caliphite. It's caliphate, right? It's caliphate, even though it's spelled with an I. I think it's caliphate. It's caliphate. No, it's caliphate. Caliphate. Caliphite? 8. It's caliphate.
Society writ large, there's genetics, but there's also an intermediary variable, culture. How do you process society and express your genetics? There's probably something to say for culture, though based on the more recent behavioral genetic data that I've seen, people in some sense secrete their culture based on their genetics, at least to some great degree.
Okay, one of the most valuable things that I learned, oh my God, if you have the time, we watched this a long time ago. Robert Sapolsky has a whole lecture series on human behavioral evolution, behavioral biology. Such a good series, a lot of time. But don't stop viewing things as nature versus nurture, or like genes versus environment. The reality is that genes always express themselves in an environment, always. They need each other. And that to view them ever as a clean dichotomy is completely missing the point. There are traits that are going to be more genetically or biologically influenced than other traits. That is true, but the gene is required for that phenotype for the trait expression, but the environment is also required for that phenotype expression. For instance, let's say I look up the heritability of alcoholism, okay? Alcoholism is moderately heritable with estimates of heritability ranging from 40 to 70%. Let me see if I can get this exactly correct. Heritability means how much of a variable, how much of the change of a variable from one person to another is explained by genetics, I believe. Whether or not somebody is alcoholic maybe is, 55% explained maybe, or whether or not somebody will be or won't be is 55% explained by genetic factors, right? However, imagine you have a society that has no alcohol. This doesn't matter. This is irrelevant now. It doesn't matter what your, it doesn't matter how likely it is that you'll be alcoholic or not. It doesn't matter. This phenotype can't express itself. Literally, you can't drink. There's nothing to drink. Same thing with, you can look at other factors as well. You can breed the most genetically superior, powerful NBA players, whatever the fuck ever. And if you don't feed them enough growing up, they're going to be short. And they're not going to be as physically powerful as they would be otherwise because they just don't have enough food to develop. Doesn't matter what their genetic profile is. Again, not to say that genes don't matter. They obviously do. But the environment is incredibly important too, as are the genes. But both are always working in tandem with each other. You never really like separate one from the other. They're always working in tandem with each other.
Like if you're the kind of person that's born into even a family of very highly unconscientious people, but you have a lot of trait conscientiousness, and they introduce you to a very low conscientiousness culture, like just fuck it, do whatever, YOLO, you probably, as you mature into teenagehood, will be like, this sucks. I need the fuck out of here. You know, like the small town, get me out of here. I'm not made for this kind of thing.
That exists.
We have two of those people so far, two archetypes, very rough, right?
And there's also, just to finish that point, I think there's a protective factor if you're in the correct social group.
Would you have a convo about this with Dr. Mike? If you wanted to, yeah. I'm not actually sure like how much we would actually disagree on though. I feel like most of our conversation would be just me telling him like, I feel like you're a little bit too strong with these statements. Maybe, I don't know. But actually Dr. Mike might just say what I literally just said, so who knows?
Protective factor if you're in the correct social group. So how many kids that may, let's say genetically, have an issue with addiction, with lack of delayed gratification ability, all those factors that we label as potentially successful. Like they have low levels of that. But if they're in the right social class, they're born wealthy into a wealthy family in the United States, will they make mistakes and suffer consequences? Absolutely. But it's protective in the way that they're not going to become drastically poor.
Because they don't have the opportunities to make those choices, right? I was going to bring this up yesterday with Adam. When you talk about, like, for instance, selling drugs or getting involved in a lot of trouble as a child, if you come from a background like mine, it's really hard to do that. If you go to a preppy high school or even a good public high school, right? You've got to be to school early for band practice or for some, athletic training. After school, you might stay late because you also do, a sport or something. Or maybe you've got like school aftercare programs, and then mom or dad comes by and they pick you up, and then you go home. Like, when are you going to sell drugs? Or when are you going to like do some fuck shit? You don't even really have time to. It's not even in your schedule. There is a saying that is incredibly true, which is, idle hands are the devil's plaything? People that sit around, especially children, and have nothing to do, will fuck or do fuck shit. That's always what will happen. You've got a dick, people have pussies, you fuck people, you make kids. That's just a natural human thing. Or you get up into some fuck shit because you're a kid. What the fuck else are you? You're not going to work a job. You're not going to go be an architect. You're going to go do some stupid shit. That's just what you do as kids. There's nothing else to do, right? So if kids don't have a bunch of shit to keep them busy, yeah, you get up to some fuck shit. That's just what happens. So yeah, even taking a person with potentially negative proclivities and sticking them in a more positive environment could theoretically give them, be protective in that they don't have an opportunity to express those negative things. Yeah.
You just made category 3 of the 4. So category 3 is people
People who have fuck genetics or conscientiousness, but are in good environments.
who come from wealth but exhibit very low conscientiousness.
Yeah.
And they tend to have that protective buffer. But you can
But, oh shit. But he's going to say on the aggregate, these people over time are going to get with other fuck people over time, and they're going to drift lower.
work your way through any protective buffer. And through multiple generations of low conscientious individuals, you can lose absolutely everything and
Yeah.
just become absolutely destitute. No problem.
Which is probably true. Yeah.
Say gambling addiction can cancel out every single bit of generational wealth in a
That's true.
matter of minutes, if you think about it.
Not really
Definitely
minutes,
hours
but
and days,
yeah.
for sure years. Profound drug addiction. I would like to believe in a world in which people who have a huge proneness to drug addiction
Can people, if you do, if you're going to reference like a hobby or a skill or whatever on a TV show, why not just pay like $100 to get somebody that does it recreationally for consultation? I don't know why people don't do this. Like they'll reference like a hobby or a thing on a show, and then they use the cringiest terms to explain it. It's like, why didn't you just pay somebody who likes this hobby to just come in and talk about it? I'm sorry, he brought up gambling. Fuck. I watched a Suits episode last night, and he mentioned something about like, of course he was going to win that hand. He drew this card on the 4th street or whatever. And I'm like, who the fuck says that? You mean on the turn? Who says the 4th street? Now, I think if you go back to like the 70s or 80s, I think people would speak like that. Your 4th and 5th street are the turn in the river. But no, who says that? Nobody says it anymore. Pay somebody to do the terminology. And I'm sure it probably applies to a bunch of shit that I don't know anything about, sports or hobbies or whatever the fuck else. But street is a term used by announcers these days. Fuck you, don't care. And not true. And you're banned.
you simply give them the right access to care and they're better. Mike, you've seen the data on drug recovery rates. It's not pretty. A lot of wealthy people who have all the resources who are prone to drug addiction just continue to, I'm not going to name any celebrities, just continue to struggle with it their entire lives. And so, yes, the buffer is real, but we can't paint the buffer too strongly as like, you're never going to be poor.
How do you get past the corny dialogue in Suits? I can't get into it because of that. I mean, it just depends on what kind of dialogue you like. Some shows just write certain types of dialogue, right? Like House's dialogue is very much... Could I say Sorkin-ish? I feel like I call every type of like pretentious dialogue like Sorkin dialogue. Where like every single person is like witty, clever, highly intelligent, incredibly perceptive, incredibly insightful. Like every single patient that comes in, even like the children will be like incredibly insightful and self-aware and everything. Yeah, it's just like it's a style of writing dialogue, you know. You'd love The Newsroom. The Newsroom is a little bit too preachy for me. Although maybe now on my pro-America arc, maybe I could get into it more. Fuck, actually, maybe I would. That one guy. Because now I'm remembering that one speech. Sorkin, grand speeches that leave everyone breathless. Yeah.
Let's move on.
Because I used to think this was kind of cringy. But I don't know. Now that I'm more on my pro-America arc, I don't know. Maybe I would appreciate this. No, but then there are things like... Was it The Newsroom? It was The Newsroom, right? Like this, I think I would always find this fucking insanely cringe.
Has there been a terrorist attack?
I don't think there's anything that would ever get me out. I don't know. I'm not gonna risk it, okay?
A lot of wealthy people who have all the resources who are prone to drug addiction just continue to, I'm not going to name any celebrities, just continue to struggle with it their entire lives. And so, yes, the buffer is real, but we can't paint the buffer too strongly as like, you're never going to be poor. Oh, you can recess down. No problem.
what the data...
Much easier to lose than to gain.
Yeah.
Something kind of surprising is I believe there is a bit of stickiness at the ends with our quintiles of wealth, but I think it's actually it's more fluid than you think. What would I look up? Chances of moving wealth, quintiles, United States. Top line is this: about 61% of young adults in the bottom quintile in their late 20s have climbed to a higher quintile 10 years later. But for those starting from the bottom rung in their late 40s, just 40% have moved up. I wonder how this is being quantified. Oh, fuck, hold on. Because now I understand econ a bit better. I wonder what this means. Wealth status sticky over working years. Share of those in each early 30s quintile who end in their each late 50s quintile. Oh no, this is by wealth. Wait, this is... Oh wait, this might be completely and utterly fucking worthless. Never mind. Forget anything I've ever said about this. I'd have to reevaluate my opinion. Never mind. I don't know. This doesn't mean anything. Never mind. Okay. Wealth is like the worst way to... Wealth is like a factor of how long you've been working. It's stupid when people correlate wealth with some other factor besides age. But whatever. Okay. Okay. I don't care. Don't worry about it. Have you had a look at modern monetary theory? Also, it would seem super interesting to see a Bridges episode with economist Steve Keen. Maybe someday. Okay.
Yeah, what?
But we can't paint the buffer too strongly as like, you're never going to be poor. Oh, you can recess down.
Oh, earnings compared to parents might be more interesting. Sure. I don't know. Link me maybe on a point.
Yeah,
No
what the
problem.
data...
Much easier to lose than to gain.
Yeah, what the data shows about specifically, let's say, substance abuse is quite interesting in that if you look at people who are struggling with substance abuse in decade 3 of their life, checking back in with them at decade 5, the odds that they still have a substance abuse issue.
I'm going to guess when he says issue, does he mean like not in remission or not being like managed? Or does he mean like still full blown? Ooh, substance use disorder. Okay, so let's think. My inclination is to say very high, like 80%. However, there's going to be a bit of a bias in that if you still have a substance use disorder, you're more likely to die from the substance itself or complications than if you cure it. So that is going to mean that you're going to be selecting for more people to have survived. So that percentage would drop. And then you've also got the fact that people do get treatment because obviously there's a lot of bad outcomes and you're either forced into it or you get arrested or something else. I'm going to guess 50% is for pussies. That's a weak number. If you have I'm going to guess 65% still have it. Okay.
Is not as high as you think it would be.
Fuck!
So
What is it?
really a lot of time
No, you're not going to give a number? Wait.
checking back in with them at decade 5, the odds that they still have a substance abuse issue is not as high as you think it would be. So really a lot of time.
Percentage of people who recover from substance use disorder. Based on research on CD, 3 out of 4 people, 75% recover from addiction. Well, that's a pretty good number. Damn. But I wonder what that actually looks like. Of the 29 million adults with a substance use problem, 72.2% consider themselves to be in recovery, would have recovered from their drug or alcohol use problem. Huh, I wonder what that means. The CDC reports that the relapse rate is 40 to 60%. Well, that's closer to my 65%. Although this may seem high, these numbers are lower than the 50 to 70% relapse rate of asthma and hypertension. Well, that's quite the comparison. Okay. Destiny, if he said the number, would you blindly trust him? I mean, he's a doctor who's citing a thing. I would at least appreciate to hear the number. I mean, we can still look it up, but... Can you clarify your take on CEOs are not employees? I don't understand your rationalization for this. CEOs are hired by the board of the company and can be fired at any time if they fail to execute on the board's plans. They are subject to employee protocols and procedures. They receive the same benefits as other employees in the company. I'm curious as to why they wouldn't be considered employees. C-level executives, if they were an employee, I would just call them an executive. It's not the same type of thing as like just an ordinary like W-2 wage earner, although theoretically... can you compensate a CEO exclusively on W-2 earnings? I actually don't know. I'm sure you could, but like a C-level executive is going to be different than like an ordinary worker, I would say. They're just a different, and also like generalizing that would be very, very, very hard across all industries. Like what is a CEO like? Like my guess is, if I had to guess, the average wage or median of a CEO might even be negative or zero, just because of how many businesses fail or are not profitable. The mean is probably absurdly high, because I'm sure the average is weighted insanely highly by like the top performing C-level execs, like for people like the Bezoses and the Elons. That's just, it's like such a varied industry. I don't know if I would ever say like, oh, well, a CEO makes this much money. It just doesn't, it's too hard to generalize. And it's, yeah. Aren't you a CEO? On a strict level, I think no, I would just be an owner, because I don't have a C-level structured corporation. I just have an LLC that's taxed as an S corp that I'm not even sure what the purpose is anymore. What is this form called again? 2553. Figuring out addiction stats as complete AIDS. Definition of terms is effing ridiculous. Yeah, I'm sure it could be difficult. Why S corp election for LLC? An LLC tax and S corp do tax planning that cannot be accomplished by an LLC. It's a partnership or disregarded as an entity. Another possible advantage comes from the tax jobs. 20% qualified business income deduction. I mean, an LLC is still a pass-through, right? Hold on, I'm actually curious. I don't know. You can definitely change that at this point, right? If it were to be advantageous, that I don't know why I would ever want a C corp. Why would I want corporate taxes? I don't know what the most. I don't know what the. I don't know when you would make a formal C corporation, and you have to have like business minutes, and you have to have like a full board. Fuck all that shit. There's like filing requirements. I don't even know if an LLC is a real thing. I don't know if my business is like a. I think it's still considered. LLCs are disregarded entities on the federal level, right? Yeah. They're all pass-throughs. And even if you do the S corp election, it's still a disregarded entity federally. I guess I could sell stock. If the LLC makes the election, it is deemed to 1, transfer all of its assets and liabilities to the corporation in exchange for the corporation's stock, and then 2, distribute the stock to its owners in complete liquidation. I should do like an advising thing, and maybe I should revisit. Where's that one Can tax man guy? Oh, but he's Canadian. There are big tax professionals out there. I probably should actually. Hey, or maybe I'll look this up later. I should do like a. I should reevaluate this. I don't know if my business should even make sense. Are corporate tax applied from the profits before or after the company uses that money for stuff like shareholder payouts / buybacks? Shareholder payouts or buybacks will always be done with the profit a company makes, because that's extra money that is made that's not being reinvested into the business. A buyback is not, or a dividend is not a reinvestment into the business. It's a return of money to investors.
Times it's about buying time to get past this issue.
Okay, sorry.
Their life.
Jesus.
Checking back in with them at decade 5, the odds that they still have a substance abuse issue is not as high as you think it would be. So really a lot of times it's about buying time to get past this issue by a means of risk reduction. And that could be taking a pharmaceutical medication to get you off of that medicine, even though it has side effects. It could mean trading one unhealthy habit like substance abuse for a healthier one. How many people cope
Fitness?
Yeah, with issues in their lives through abusing themselves in fitness, or maybe overusing testosterone because before they were addicted to heroin and they've gotten off heroin, but they still miss that rush or whatever it is,
Sure.
and they're getting it elsewhere in a slightly less negative way.
Yeah.
So it's pretty interesting to see how if you look at humans in one point in their life, that doesn't always equate. Like we say people who have substance abuse. The same way that it's unfair to say people who are rich
Yeah.
this year or earn the most this year, the top 1% this year, it's not going to be next year. The same holds true.
So Mike here is trying, good Mike is trying to avoid essentializing these characteristics to people. And he's giving like the more like tabula rasa. They're going to end before somebody uses that exact term. Tabula rasa, or is it rasa? Approach. Like, well, every human could do anything at any point in time. And evil Mike, bald Mike, is going to come more probably from the, well, actually, you're probably far more likely to end up in a certain place, even if you're doing okay at a particular point in time.
Year or earn the most this year, the top 1% this year. It's not going to be next year. The same holds true for people with substance abuse.
Yeah, and every other factor as well.
Yeah, exactly.
That's an excellent point. But
I feel like his response is still going to be the same, right? But these are still going to be heavily determined by biological factors, regardless of which group you're in.
the other last category is people who are relatively wealthy already and also have high trait conscientiousness. And those individuals tend to have extreme amounts of continual success and aggregate high amounts of intergenerational wealth.
Why is, I actually don't know the answer to this. Is conscientiousness really the most highly correlated of the big five to success? Most important trait, 5-factor. Whenever somebody, I think Jordan Peterson, I think this is like one of the more common ones that's used now. When people want to do like a personality inventory, like the Myers-Briggs is bullshit. But I think this is the biggest one I think that's used right now. So openness to experience, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. I think these are your big personality traits. And then I think there are subcategories to each. So openness to experience measures like how much curiosity do you have about the world and how much you're willing to explore that versus like being, I guess like kind of like rigidly like stuck in a pattern or cautious. Conscientiousness is like, are you efficient and organized with your time versus like doing drugs and going out and being like wacky and crazy. Extroversion is, I think it's just extroversion, right? How outgoing you are for other people and talking to people versus kind of like staying at home all day like a fucking neat loser. Agreeableness, friendly and compassionate versus critical / judgmental. Agreeableness, I don't know if this is always a good trait or not. And neuroticism has to do with like how sensitive you are to things like criticism or just sensitivity or nervousness or anxiety in general versus like how resilient are you in the face of adversity and shit like that, I think. I don't know how accurate my summaries are. That's my understanding of it, but I think this is the wait, I don't have to think about it. I can just look it up. Most popular personality inventory. Okay, AI, sorry. Oh, Myers-Briggs, okay. Personality assessments, 10 best inventory system. What are these websites? I can't believe Google doesn't work anymore. Hexico. I think that was in that wiki article too. 8 personality tests used in psychology and by employers from Indeed.com. Workstyle.io. Okay, never mind. I don't know. It's called the Ocean. They are personality models. Being strong in all of them doesn't necessarily mean it's a good thing. Sure. Yeah, like I think you can have, there's probably pros and cons to both sides. So like if you're a highly agreeable person, I think you're more manipulatable. If you're a highly disagreeable person, you might be more prickly. People don't want to talk to you because you're like super mean to everybody. Stuff like that, yeah. Somebody with ultra high conscientiousness might be a little bit autistic or schizoid. You're just like super trapped in like patterns or whatever it may be, but okay. Heroin profile. Wait, why wouldn't they do ocean along the bottom? Why would they do neo-AC? Cringe. So people that do heroin are highly neurotic compared to the baseline, which makes sense, I think, right? I don't know if that's generalizable, but heroin is a downer, so it alleviates anxiety and stress. I think in general, downers do, right? E is for extroversion, so they're slightly less extrovert, I guess. O is openness to experience. I imagine that's fairly high or higher than the baseline in most drug users, would be my guess, if you're open to using drugs. They tend to be more disagreeable, and they tend to be less conscientious. Makes sense. You're abusing a drug. Agreeableness, I don't really know in terms of that, but. I wonder if you could find like if I were to look at methamphetamine, 5-factor average, like I wonder if we were to look at like an upper, are people who are less neurotic more likely to abuse uppers versus people that are more neurotic? I'm curious. I'm not gonna be able to find this. Somebody in chat find this for me. Or I don't. What are the most common uppers to abuse? Oh, or like cocaine. That might be easier to find. No, I don't actually know. Somebody find it. You guys can do it.
I've met, so I have high trait conscientiousness. And those individuals tend to have extreme amounts of continual success and aggregate high amounts of intergenerational wealth. I've met a few folks who are from old money. And one of the things that stood out to me about them was how many of them were just mega degenerate losers, just totally them who are from old money.
Okay.
And one of the things that stood out to me about them was how many of them were just mega degenerate losers, just totally just riding it out. Mm-hmm. What also stuck out is how many of them were just unbelievably awesome, kind, conscientious people that you're like, I can tell you why your parents were successful because you're related to them.
Oh, 5-factor personality profiles of drug users. Marijuana. Oh, and they mix in cocaine and heroin. Do the same types of drug users use both cocaine and heroin? Is that like a, if you were to average both of them? Cocaine / heroin. I feel like these are two, I feel like cocaine and heroin are two very, very, very different drugs. Like, they show up in way different circumstances. Like, if you go to a party and somebody's like, bro, you want to fucking do a bump? You want to do some cocaine? You're like, hell yeah, let's fucking go. As opposed to you show up to a party and someone's like, hey, bro, want to do some heroin with me? Like, whoa, bro. Are you okay? What kind of drugs do you do? You know, every now and then. I go skiing. What's the term? Yeah, I do a little bit of cocaine, right? As opposed to, you know, every now and then I do shoot up some heroin. I do a good heroin. I don't know what the slang is for these drugs. I don't do coke or heroin. But okay.
And you got the same thing. Like, I know at least one person who came from money, and he's on like his third $100 million business creation all by himself. No help from mom and dad in any capacity. Just like,
well, I can't believe that.
Idea.
No help from mom and dad. If you have a protective buffer behind you, the amount of risk you're willing to take on is going to be greatly different.
I have an
than it's your
exact
last
counterpoint to that as an intellectual exercise. If you have no impetus to succeed because it doesn't matter because you're already rich, you have arguably much less drive to make it. People who came from very little, always recount the fact that it's because they came from very little that lit them up and made them drive. Whereas we're all familiar with the trope of the wealthy person that like goes to Dartmouth, but like they take whatever classes they feel like taking because who gives a shit? Dad did hedge funds and I don't have to do anything.
I feel like there are so many countervailing forces here. I don't know if I would ever, I don't even know how you would begin to stereotype where one is likely to fall, right? Because like, we can imagine, okay, a poor person, well, they have nothing in life. Their back's against the wall. They have the drive to succeed. It's the only way they're going to be. Like, you can romanticize that, you know? My parents came from nothing. I'm going to be the first one to get a degree. But then you can also be like, okay, well, my parents are poor, so I can be poor. Who the fuck cares? Everyone around me sucks, so life sucks. Who cares? Life's not fair. I don't care. Like, you could just as easily have that opinion. Same thing with rich people. You could say, like, well, you know, I go to a rich school. My parents are rich anyway. Who cares? It doesn't matter. Fuck it. I'll do whatever. I'm going to be fine. Or You know, like, fuck, my whole family are high achievers. I've got 2 siblings, like they're working on their masters and PhDs. Like I have a lot of pressure to succeed. I feel like you could apply these pressures either way. My guess is going to be on the aggregate. Wealthy people are probably pressured to be more successful, and poor people are probably not pressured to be that successful, just because of how the numbers play out. I don't even think Evil Mike would disagree with this.
Take